All right, welcome to Talking Investing. I'm Tom, and as always, this is not financial advice. Today, we're going to talk about Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners. We're going to go through what happened last week, but we're also going to do an additional analysis. I want to talk about the year 2024 versus the year 2023 for the Bitcoin miners, and then maybe what to expect in the year 2025. So we're gonna go through all our normal charts and then some. So if you're new to the channel, we talk about Bitcoin and Bitcoin miners all the time. If that's content you're interested in, please consider subscribing to the channel. Also, if everybody could hit the like button, we're going for 300 likes. It really does help out the video a lot and the channel a lot, so we appreciate it very much. I wanna thank everybody. We've had 5 videos in a row get to 300 plus likes. Okay, so let's talk about Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners. Okay, so first chart we're gonna go through is week over week as of last Friday. So last week, we had a mixed bag. We had some green and some red. Now, that's after 3 weeks in a row of either being straight across the board green or straight across the board red. This last week, we did have a mixed bag. So you're going to see Bitcoin actually had a good week. So as always in gold, you're going to see Bitcoin up 5%. That's 2 weeks in a row that Bitcoin has had a good week. But unlike the previous week where the Bitcoin miners had a giant week along with it, the Bitcoin miners were very split last week. So you're going to see at the very top, we have Bit Digital up 10%. And then in second and third, you're going to see Core Scientific and TeraWulf up 7% and 6%. Those are the 3 Bitcoin miners that outperform Bitcoin. And it's worth noting, Core and Wolf are the 2 best performing stocks on the year. So they're in second and third last week. They're by far in first and second year to date in 2024. And that was not true earlier in the year. So they've had basically a middle of the year to second half of the year surge here. And we're going to get to that chart next. Okay, then you see Bitcoin up 5%. And then BitDeer and Hive were the only other ones that were in the green on the week, but they did underperform Bitcoin. So 9 of the 12 Bitcoin miners that we follow underperformed Bitcoin this week. In the previous week, all 12 of the 12 Bitcoin miners outperformed Bitcoin. We'll take a quick look at that one in a minute. So you'll see a bunch were very near zero. Riot was at 0. Hut was down 1%. Iron was down 1%. And they actually had a really nice press release, I thought, last week, and it did not seem to help. They still finished the week down 1%. Bitfarms down 2%. And then Marathon, the largest Bitcoin miner by market cap, was down 4%. Cleanspark, one of the largest by market cap, was also down 4%. And then Cypher was down 6%. So you can see this week was all over the place, anywhere from up 10% to down 6%. So a real mixed bag last week as Bitcoin continued a 2-week rally. So we're going to have to see this week, can we continue the top of the rally? Later in the video, we're going to take a look at the chart that shows we seem to be headed towards a point potentially we could be having another up week. Of course, none of this is financial advice, and of course, I can't predict the future, so we will take a look at that chart, and you guys can let me know what you think in the comments section. Okay, so just quickly to revisit, I said we had 2 good weeks in a row for Bitcoin. So the previous week, the week ended September 13th, Bitcoin was up 12%. So 12% 2 weeks ago, 5% last week. That is a nice run for Bitcoin, but you can see 2 weeks ago, the Bitcoin miners had a very nice recovery. So anywhere from up 13% to up 26%. So things seemed to be moving in the right direction. This was a little bit of a recovery because the 2 weeks prior to this were both very red weeks. So we've been all over the place. This continues to be a roller coaster ride. We are trapped inside of a range for Bitcoin, and we are trapped inside of a range for the Bitcoin miners. We are waiting patiently to break out of that range and obviously, hopefully, break out to the upside. Okay, so before we get to the year-to-date numbers, I want to go to the Bitcoin chart itself. This is the Bitcoin chart on the 1-day time frame, and I think this explains a lot of the reason that the Bitcoin miners are so sideways and struggling so much. Actually, several of them are down quite a bit year-to-date in 2024. And then we're going to take a look at what happened. Okay, so the first part of this year was a giant run for Bitcoin. Bitcoin hit a new all-time high in March, over $73,000. This was the first time that Bitcoin hit a new all-time high prior to the halving. Typically, it takes a significant period of time after the halving before Bitcoin gets back to its previous all-time high. Well, this cycle has been different in that regard. We hit our new all-time high prior to the halving. That is due almost solely to the fact that the Bitcoin spot ETFs were approved in January of 2024, and Bitcoin went on a monster run to the upside. So having said that, after the first 2 months of the Bitcoin ETFs causing a giant run up in Bitcoin, we have been going sideways and really with a bias to the downside for the last 6+ months. So we're now coming up on 6.5 months ago that we hit that all-time high, and you can see we've been trading up and down inside of a range. We did get as low as $49,000 back on August 5th. That was more of a flash crash because even that one-day candle did close at around $54,000, which you can see held this bottom line of support. So we have a descending channel here, but the bottom continues to hold up very well. We've hit the bottom of this about 4 times. We've hit the top of this 3 times, and we seem to be on the way potentially back up to retesting the top. So we've had a few good weeks in a row. If we can have a continuation here, potentially we retest the top of this. Obviously, there's no guarantee of that, and all we need to do is look. Just a few weeks ago, we did have a nice run up, but we got stuck here and didn't retest the top of this. So just with today's price action, you're going to see we are now retesting these highs from late August, just about 1 month ago. And last time, that is when the rally stalled and we turned back around and retested the bottom of this channel. So we're at a very important spot for Bitcoin right now. If we can break above this, it looks like we may be able to run back up to the top of this channel, but this is a pretty strong line of resistance. So we're going to see if we can break above this or if we top out here again. And so in the middle of all this, actually early on in all this, on April 20th, we had the Bitcoin halving. So we are not only 6 months into the price of Bitcoin going sideways, but the reward for the Bitcoin miners has been cut in half. So you can see why it has been a very difficult run for the last 6 months for the Bitcoin miners. This is not the formula where the Bitcoin miners thrive. This is not the portion of the 4-year cycle where the Bitcoin miners tend to have big up movements. So while it's very frustrating, this does resemble previous cycles quite a bit. Obviously, the question being, can we break out of the top of this channel and start to hit new all-time highs and get that parabolic run up to a new all-time high like we have in all of the previous Bitcoin mining cycles? So that really is what the whole concept of the Bitcoin miner investment is predicated on. Obviously, it goes a lot deeper than that, and there's a lot of variables, but the simple fact is, without a big run-up in Bitcoin after the halving, just the economics of the Bitcoin miners doesn't work because the reward gets cut in half. So if the Bitcoin price doesn't double, then you're not back to even where you started. Now, in every single previous Bitcoin cycle, the price of Bitcoin significantly more than doubled, making the Bitcoin miners good investments in those previous cycles. So it remains to be seen whether that happens in the current cycle, and that's what we're talking about. With all that said, here is the year-to-date charts for Bitcoin. So you can see what I'm talking about has been playing out. There are 2 notable exceptions that we'll talk about: Core Scientific and TeraWulf. Core Scientific's up 116% year-to-date as of the close of Friday. TeraWulf's up 88% year-to-date. So these 2 Bitcoin miners have outperformed Bitcoin. They are by far and away the winners so far in the year 2024. Now, I will tell you, there have been wild swings throughout the year. Just 3 months ago, Iris Energy and CleanSpark were far and away the 2 best performing Bitcoin miners. And you can see they have had dramatic pullbacks. So the volatility is real in this space. We talk about this in every video. Bitcoin has a lot of volatility. The Bitcoin miners have even more volatility. So, if that is something that is not a comfort level for you, this is not the right space for you to be investing in. So please take that into consideration when you're doing your due diligence and considering investing in these Bitcoin miners. I know a lot of you watching have been investing in these for a long time and you understand this, but it is important to remind yourself that these wild swings happen. For instance, CleanSpark halfway through the year was up 50% year to date, and now here near the end of September, year to date, they're down 18%. So that is a gigantic swing to the downside. Iris Energy is down 50% off of its highs. A lot of these Bitcoin miners are down 30 or 40 or 50% from their highs just from 2 or 3 months ago. So to finish out this chart, you can see there's only 3 Bitcoin miners in the green. Iron is up 5%, and then everything else is in the red. Anywhere from 16% down to 54%. So let's talk about the bottom for a minute. Riot is down at the bottom of this list, down 54%. So Riot has been by far the worst performing stock in the year 2024. Investors just do not like what is going on with Riot, it would appear, because this is pretty dramatic underperformance versus all of its peers. You can see there's a big grouping here in the 25 to 34% range. Those are also pretty rough numbers from a year-to-date standpoint in a year where Bitcoin has had a very good year, up 49%. The equity markets have had a very good year. The S&P 500 just hit a new all-time high last week. So we look at this chart every week. You know, there's no material change here. We still have 9 of the 12 Bitcoin miners in the red on the year. In other words, they are down year to date. And I have been saying now for at least the last 90 days, I do expect that the Bitcoin miners are not going to have a huge run to the upside until Bitcoin breaks out of that range that we just took a look at. So really, the top of that range is somewhere between 68 and 69,000. So it is my opinion that until Bitcoin breaks out of the top of that range, retests maybe its highs back from March at 73,000, I believe that then you're going to start to see bigger moves and potentially the Bitcoin miners could start a run to the upside. Obviously, that is not financial advice. We don't know when or if Bitcoin is going to get back up to the top of that range or break out of that range. And obviously, only time will tell how the Bitcoin miners react. But I do want to show you guys one more chart that I think really will help put things in perspective, because I know a lot of people are saying that the Bitcoin miners are dead money and that these have been a horrible investment and they're never going to recover. So with that said, I want to take a look at the year 2023. We haven't really looked at this in a long time. This is what the Bitcoin miners did in the year 2023. So you can see Bitcoin hit a double bottom in November and December of 2022. And then in 2023, Bitcoin had a big run to the upside. So Bitcoin was up 154% in the year 2023. So you can see when Bitcoin does have these big breakouts, the Bitcoin miners can have massive moves to the upside. I'm going to ignore Core Scientific. They were in chapter 11 and their stock had basically gone to almost zero. So that's a bit of an outlier. So that notwithstanding, if you look at the top of this list, Cypher was up 638%. Bit Digital was up 605%. Marathon, which is the largest Bitcoin miner by market cap, so this is not a tiny company, they were up 587% in the year 2023. So you're going to see a lot of 400 and 500 and 600% moves to the upside. And then there's a big grouping up between 214 and 261%. Back then we were following 19 Bitcoin miners, so you will see there's 4 on here that did underperform Bitcoin. These were the nano cap stocks. So we are now following the 12 large Bitcoin mining companies. So in 2023, even those nano cap stocks, which underperform Bitcoin, were all in the green. A couple of those were still up over 100%. So, you know, the 12 that we are now following were up anywhere from 214% to 638%, and that doesn't count Core Scientific, which was up 1,800% on the year. So when you look at a Riot, which is down 50%, and that is the worst performer of the year by far, it's important to remember that's coming off of a year where they were up 356%. So, you know, if you were dollar cost averaging in all the while, you still could potentially be in good shape. Now, I'm not saying Riot's performing well. Obviously, Riot and many of the other Bitcoin miners are having very difficult years in 2024. I'm just trying to put a little perspective on this, that if you zoom out a little bit, you'll see these are still trending in the right direction. But like Bitcoin over the last 6 months, the Bitcoin miners are taking a break. They have had a pullback. In the past, what's happened oftentimes after these periods of pullback or consolidation is big moves to the upside. So obviously it remains to be seen if that will happen this time. This has been a very difficult run to be a Bitcoin miner investor. So for the time being, and until further notice, these Bitcoin miners are definitely very frustrating investments at the moment. So obviously this is a part of your due diligence. This all depends. Do you believe that Bitcoin is going to have its breakout to the upside, run to new all-time highs, have a parabolic run like it's had in the previous 3-4-year cycles after the halvings? And are the Bitcoin miners going to act accordingly? So I just wanted to add a little bit extra this time around and kind of put some perspective on this, because this is now over 6 months of really pretty frustrating activity for the Bitcoin miners. So I'm going to leave you with those thoughts. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments section. Have you given up on the Bitcoin miners? Do you think there's better times ahead? So as always, thanks again for watching. And if you made it this far, please remember to hit the like button and consider subscribing to the channel. Thanks again, and we'll see you in the next video.